The Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, winner of the National Radio Hall of Fame Award, Michael Savage.
The old weather is at us again. It's that global warming, 106-mile-an-hour tornado force winds just recorded in the Sierra Nevada, for those of you who've been to Lake Tahoe. It's that old global warming. Don't tell that to the bureaucrats in Washington or in Sacramento. They're convinced that we're in a state of drought, even though people are being flooded out of their houses in the Russian River area of Northern California. 106-mile-an-hour tornado force winds hitting the Sierra Nevada. But I'm sure Jerry Brown and his weather cohorts up there, locked down as they are in their bunker of reality, don't even know that there's a rainstorm outside. They're still pushing out the metaphor of drought and the global warming. Let's hope all of this changes with the new administration, because, boy, do we need a change from the insanity. And speaking of insanity, I'm going to talk about a topic that is forbidden in talk radio. I don't know that anyone's done this recently. Perhaps they have. I don't listen to all the shows that are out there. Some of them may have done it. Local shows, national, don't know. But I want to talk about sexual assault today. I know it's not about Trump. I know it's not about Trump Tower. I know it's not about the elevator. It's not about who's being appointed to what. It's not about the rumors of this and the rumors of that, the rumblings of this, the rumblings of that. It's about sexual assault. And the reason I'm going to talk about it is because there's a show I like on television called The Affair. I don't know whether it's on Showtime or HBO, I don't remember. And I just happened to stumble upon season 3. I was kind of bored of it after season 2, but season 3's gotten much better. Writing is superb. Directing, great. Acting, terrific. So in one of the scenes from The Affair, the lead figure has just come out of jail for, he allegedly committed homicide. He's out of jail. He's a college teacher at a small college somewhere, I guess. And he's at a dinner party with a couple of graduate students and a female professor from France, a professor of medieval love or something, I don't know, medieval romance. And they start to discuss sexuality and sexual assault. It is so well written. It is so well written that it got me off my chair. I said, Teddy, this is good stuff. And I said, I'm going to play a little bit of this from the show, The Affair, on my show, at the risk of offending those who want to hear what's on the latest website. Trump did this, Trump did that, Zuckerberg did this, the electors did that. How much could you take of that? I can't take any more of it. Russia did this, Russia didn't do that. Will they block it on Monday? Will the celebs call for a coup? Will Zuckerberg show up? Will he get a new undershirt? He'll be appointed czar of Trump Tower? We don't know. I can't do it anymore. It's done. The election is over. He won. He will do what he wants. It's that simple. Now, what do you want to talk about this for? I don't. So I'm going to talk about the things that interest me. Yesterday I spent the whole show on saving the whales. Go ahead and laugh if you want. It doesn't matter to me anymore. Let me tell you something about what's coming on my show. I'm liberated. I'm a liberated talk show host. I don't care what my ratings are, because I found out something 20 years ago when I started in radio. If the host is interested in the topic and can project that interest, which they call passion today, everything's passion. That's the latest corporate word. Oh, he has a passion for this. Well, anyway, if you have a passion for something in radio, people are going to enjoy the show. They'll listen to you. If you're just mailing it in and reading headlines from the Drudge Report, let me tell you something. There's a limit to how much of that anyone could take. So I'm going to go with what's of interest to me. I'm interested in saving the whales. I talked about saving the whales. I had a man on who was put his life on the line for the last 20 years from Sea Shepherd. I thought it was one of my better shows. I'm sure that the diehard knee-jerk conservatives didn't like it because it wasn't anything about George Washington's false teeth. I get that. But I'll take my risks and do the things I have to do. And so today I'm going to talk about sexual assault. So the first thing I'm going to ask you, women, were you the victim of sexual assault? Men, have you ever been falsely accused of sexual assault? What were the circumstances? What did it do to your life? I want to talk about that. But before I do, I'm going to play for you a clip from Showtime's show, The Affair, where there is this imaginary conversation about sexual consent, sexual assault, in a setting, in the setting of a dinner party. So let's listen to clip number 2 on the Savage Nation.
For God's sakes, Audrey, nobody's condoning rape. We're just saying that the term sexual assault is so expansively used now that it dilutes public outrage for the very crime you're trying to prosecute.
Really, Mike? Because a woman who cries sexual assault might just be looking for attention? Or maybe she was confused. Maybe she really did want it.
Maybe she did. Maybe she did, and then maybe she regretted it later. I mean, I've certainly regretted sleeping with certain people. But when I do, I don't bring a disciplinary charge against them.
You, Cornwall.
Oh, you know, you ladies, not you, Professor, but you two are on a witch hunt.
Oh, no.
Excuse me?
Yes, you are, and I get it. No, I get it. You've been victims of this systematized patriarchal oppression for many years now, but that doesn't give you the right to terrorize us.
Terrorize you.
Terrorize, yes. I feel terrified to touch a woman at a party now, especially if she's had a drink, because if I take her home, right, and I her, the next morning I wake up and I don't tell her that I love her or that I want to marry her, she can literally prosecute me.
Okay, I stopped listening at the part where she f***ed you because that's when your story lost all credibility.
Professor Blake.
He's right. All this talk of consent is just demoralizing.
Demoralizing?
It's confusing.
It's not that confusing. Ask her what she wants.
I don't want to ask her.
Why the not?
Because asking isn't sexy.
Professor Legal, you must have an opinion about this.
Professor Legal is an expert in courtly love. And I'm pretty sure that Lancelot never asked Guinevere permission to...
Truly, Mike, if that's what you think, then you haven't been paying enough attention in my lectures. In courtly love, the woman is always in charge. She is the lord and master, and the knight is her servant. And even when he cannot consummate his passion, as is often the case, the very act of loving her enriches his life and improves his nobility.
Huh. Imagine that, Mike. A man loving a woman who he doesn't get to...
That's not true. All right? You said erotic love. I wrote down the word erotic in my notebook. I circled it 3 times.
But erotic doesn't always mean physical. Sometimes the woman invites the man into her bed and he's not allowed to touch her. Is there anything more erotic than that?
You want to know what my problem is with courtly love? It's just exhausting for the guys.
Yes.
I mean, all those ordeals to prove their ardor and commitment. Joust upon joust. I mean, stop faking. Just give me the bacon, baby.
Bacon!
That's it. Right?
All right, you could see why I was interested in this show. But it was more than just my amusement. I said, this is a national talk show that I have. Why can I not talk about a topic as incendiary as sexual assault, since it's on everyone's mind, especially younger people? I am not talking about the over 50 crowd, which grew up in a different generation. The over 50 crowd grew up with a whole different set of rules between men and women. And the rules were, well, I don't know if I can spell them out, but you know and I know, if you're over 50, your views of sexuality are much different than that of the people in their 20s right now. We don't exactly know what their rules are. We seem to think that they kind of do it in the road. It is sort of the Beatles song. Whatever they want to do, they do with whoever they want to do, whenever they want to do it, and there are no boundaries. Those of us who came up in another time had totally different ideas about women, if we're men, and different ideas about men, I guess, if we're women. And I can't spell the rules out for you. I frankly come from a Neanderthal age where, truthfully, it was a very sexist universe that I grew up in. Women largely either were homemakers or subservient to their husbands or to their boyfriends. Men were the dominant party. That was the role model that I grew up in. And any man who couldn't live up to that macho rule was considered to be, well, not quite a man. Well, we found out that that's a myth. And, by the way, for the betterment of most of humanity, we found out that that was a myth, because it's a segmented set of rules that don't really apply to most people, just to some people. And now we come to a new age in this whole issue of sexual assault. We know that it's gotten out of hand to a certain extent. We know that a professor, for example, can have his life ruined by a student who doesn't like him simply for saying he touched me inappropriately. Well, maybe he did touch her inappropriately, but maybe he didn't touch her inappropriately. Here at the University of California at Berkeley, some of the finest professors that the world has ever seen, real professors, fine professors in real sciences, have had their lives ruined by liars who made stuff up. Everyone knows they made it up, and yet the witch hunt went on. The men were thrown out of their jobs. simply by being accused. It's a form of sexual fascism. This is not to say that there is no such thing as sexual assault. Don't get me wrong. And that's why I think this is a great topic. And I hope you'll join the conversation and enlighten the listeners to the program. Has the fear of being accused of doing something criminal stopped you from a relationship with a woman? As a woman, do you prefer a man who is more masculine or more sensitive? In an intimate relationship, who is really in charge? And by the way, does it really matter? And by the way, if the sensitivity about consent is so strong these days, why are such sexually charged romance novels and books so popular today? How does the subject of consent affect people who want to start a family and get married? Is it ruining the chance to even meet a woman and get married? It's becoming quite common in our society to know that there is no safe place for women anywhere, whether they're at work, commuting, home, gym, etc. They all feel put upon. You all know it's true. Many men go to the gym to work out and also to look at the women in the whatever those tight things. I forget what they call them. What do they call it? Yoga pants. The yoga pant thing. Now, okay, so they feel like they're being sexually assaulted. So you could argue, why do they wear the tight pants? But that's blaming the victim, isn't it? Shouldn't a woman be able to wear what she wants? I mean, a man is not supposed to look at her if she's wearing tight pants and she's got a great body, or what? So is this an epidemic? And if it is, what's the solution? What would be fair and equitable? So I'm talking about sexual assault horror stories today. Women, were you the victim of sexual assault? We'll take your calls. Men, were you falsely accused of sexual assault? What happened to you? Let's begin at KBOI. Kathy on line 1, go ahead, please.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead. You're on the radio.
Yes. I was 18 years old, and I went to a party, and this resident doctor gave me something to put me to sleep. When I woke up, I was in his bedroom. He was trying to yank out my girdle that unfortunately was over-dried, and it was so tight. I says, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" He says, "Don't worry. If you get pregnant," he says, "I know how to take care of it." I says, "I'm getting out of here." I says, "Put me in your car and take me home." He says, "If you could fight me off, you could fight anybody off on the street. Go get yourself a cab and get out of here."
So what happened? Did you take him to court?
Well, I went home. I told my mother about it. My mother called him at the hospital the next morning, and she says, "What do you think you were doing to my daughter? She's a virgin." He says, "Mrs. So-and-so, it was a crisis." She hung up the phone. I went on with my life, and the next time I thought about it is when they were talking about Cosby and what he did to people. So I found his phone number on the internet. I called him one day, and I said, "Hello, so-and-so. Thanks to you, I'll never forget what you did to me because Cosby probably taught you what you're doing." And he slammed the phone on me, and I never...
Now, let me ask you, this was how long ago?
This was, I'm 64 now. This was 46 years ago.
Uh-huh. And you never dated again?
Oh, yeah, I dated. I went on with my life. I wasn't going to let him ruin my life. But the only...
All right, so in other words, your life wasn't destroyed. You didn't wind up like Psycho in the attic in your mother's house.
Pardon me?
So you got married or what?
Yeah, I married a nice Jewish man. He could be Paul Newman's twin, but unfortunately he died of Parkinson complications.
Oh, that's very sad. So he was a nice guy, carried the pocketbook, the whole thing?
Pardon me?
He was a nice guy who carried the pocketbook?
He was just a wonderful man. You and he would have been like two peas in a pod.
Well, I don't carry pocketbooks, and I'm not a wonderful man. Don't be confused by that. Wonderful I'm not. But nevertheless, it's not about me. It's about the topic itself. I don't know what to say. So what are you saying? The doctor gave you a drug, and he tried to rape you, and he didn't. Today he'd go to jail, right?
And then he lifted me up and put me in his bed.
Wow. But you still harbor the scars of that.
Yes, because of...
I'm saying, I'm not laughing at it. It's a horrible thing. He committed a criminal act. If what you describe happened, that's a criminal act. I agree 1,000%. 100%. 1,100%. Thanks for the call. So there it is. I think I'm going to stick to this. I'm not talking about Trump. I'm going to have a Trump-free day. You're not going to hear the word Trump or Obama once. You will not hear the word communist, liberal, Marxist. You will not hear the word Aleppo. You will not hear the word leper. You will not hear the word Syria. You will not hear the word Russia. You will not hear the word hacking. We'll talk about these topics because they're more interesting to me. Okay? Back in a minute.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com. About sexual assault. If you're the victim of assault by men, falsely accused as a man, because I can't do the other thing. I refused. I'm on strike. I'm filibustering politics for today. What are you listening to talk radio for? To take home another nugget of information? Ooh, I learned something today about the Electoral College that I never learned in high school. I'm a genius. Ooh, I got a new nugget that I can take home to bed. I'm so smart. Go learn it. Do me a favor. Go learn another thing that I would have fallen asleep in high school listening to this stuff. The whole idea of an electoral college and a popular vote and a this and a that, who he's appointing, who's in, who's out, who's in the elevator, who came down from the elevator, who went up in the elevator, who smiled at him, who was at the meeting, who wasn't at the meeting, who was with Bezos. Did Bezos have a glass eye? Why was Facebook not there? Was he there? Was the undershirt really there? Was he hiding in the background? Who served the coffee? Who served the tea? Who's in? Who's out? Is that of any interest to you? Like a gossip column. The guy isn't even president yet, and we're obsessed with him. It's a continuation of the obsession with Obama now. Now the obsession's on Trump. Every pimple, every move of his face now. He put on weight, he took off weight. He blinked, he didn't blink, he's moving, he's not moving. She's with him, she's not with him. Who's press secretary? Monica's in, Monica's out. That one's in, Monica's out. Monica was moved. She can be press secretary. Now she's going to be VA secretary. No, national security. No, I'm sorry, she's going to San Francisco for press secretary. No, she's not taking it. She is taking it. They were going to take it. She was going to give it, but she's not blonde enough, so she's not getting it. Is that what you want to talk about? It's like a gossip column. No, I'm talking about sexual assault. Were you the victim of sexual assault? Yes or no? Were you falsely accused? Yes or no? That's all. Drain the swamp. Listen to the Savage Nation.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
So, yeah, that was the 60s. That was the ethos. We went from life with father to whatever, to the gutter. If it feels good, do it. Why not do it in the road? You know, whatever. So now we're facing the consequences of it. And we're asking the question, it's a legalistic question, really, because it's wrecked society in many ways, this whole thing of sexual liberation. And you could argue for it, against it, say people are happier. Are they happier? Are people happier, actually, because of sexual liberation? How many orgasms can a person have a day? Endless, like a monkey in a cage that keeps hitting. You remember that experiment? I remember reading that in the 60s when I was working with rats on something else. I read a peculiar experiment that someone did. Whereas they wired a rat's brain with an electrode to the center that triggers an orgasm in the rat. Yes, they have orgasms, too. They haven't yet found that out in Hollywood. Please don't tell that to Harvey Weinstein. But they put an electrode in the brain of a rat. And then the rat figured out that if he touches a certain thing in the cage, he can get that little electrode to signal the orgasm center, wherever it may be, and he gets the little org, the big O. Well, the rat did it till he died. Kept hitting it. It sounds like San Francisco. That's the problem. In other words, is there no limit to the pleasure center? Should you have self-limits on the pleasure center? Can you live without pleasuring the pleasure center? I mean, people do, you know. Mother Teresa did her whole life. She lived into her 80s. Or have we gone too far? And the real issue is not that. The issue is, have you been the victim of sexual assault, really? Because that's what we're talking about. Men, have you been falsely accused and had your life ruined? Women think that they're assaulted wherever they go, that they're unsafe. There's, like the girls in college today, everything's an unsafe space. They all want safe spaces. Well, what would be a safe space? No men left in the world? Men put in a prison camp? Then you'd be in a safe space? What is it you want? People are asking. And that's why I'm playing this today, because it's a sociological question. It's actually quite political, incidentally. Has nothing to do with Trump now. Zero to do with Trump. Zero to do with Obama. Zero to do with Alinsky. Can't say socialist. I know some of the working in socialists did it to destroy man and woman. Actually, they did. But okay, I won't go into Karl Marx's description of man and woman and how bourgeois it was and how family was bourgeois. That's a whole separate story for another time. I've written about it. Carolyn, WABC, line 8. You are calling from New York City, the heart of sexual harassment, right? What goes on in your life?
Yes, hello, Mr. Savage. So, I work in male-dominated industry. I work in technology and finance. And generally, I work with mostly males, males of my own age, sometimes older, sometimes younger. And I take great effort to dress appropriately, buttoned up, suited up, hair back in a bun, and I still find that men act inappropriately in the workplace.
Now, what do you mean by inappropriately? Tell me that. I don't know what that means.
Sure. So I think there's varying degrees of it as well. So the more subtle things are you're in a meeting and, sideline comments like, this doesn't make sense to me, or I think we need to go in another direction, and this comment is thrown out as, oh, that's a blonde thing. That's not. Whereas, I'm a top performer, and it's frustrating to have my physical appearance kind of brought up in meetings and brought up in conversations. And then there's more blatant examples.
Well, hold on, I'm listening to you. I'm not going to sit there like a cynical idiot. Would you consider yourself an attractive woman in a business suit?
Yes.
So you don't expect a man to react to you as a woman?
I do, and that's a great piece of this conversation, and that's why I want to open the conversation, because the subtle things, comments about appearance. Hey, you look great today. Hey, that's a great suit. All
right, wait, let's start with that. Now, in my generation, if a man at work said you look great today, that's sexual assault today, right?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely no.
Oh, that's still allowed?
No, of course, no, and you don't dress up to look nice for people not to notice, and so,
I mean, you could come dressed like Rosie O'Donnell, and then that would all go away, or you could go get a burqa.
That's very true, and so. I
mean, maybe the burqa will become fashionable amongst feminists, so they won't be harassed anymore.
Right, and so more blatant things are. You're in a common space like the lunch area, the coffee area, and I'm coughing, and I make a comment to a fellow because I know he has asthma, and I said, "Oh my gosh, this allergy season is killing me."
Can't say that. Come on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jim, did you catch that dirty word from this young lady?
Yeah.
Well, if someone says a thing like that, that's crazy, inappropriate. That is assault.
Right, and so, and also, this was this calendar year. This was 2015, and I'm not young. I'm middle-aged. I have 3 children. I'm a mother.
Oh, now I thought you were like a Trumper. like in your 20s looking to get a job as press secretary.
So I was also a victim of similar things when I was young, and I was 24, and I had my first big girl job, and things like that.
Hold on. Are you married? Did you get married?
I am. I have a...
All right. So how did your husband come up to you? What did he say to you the first time he came up to you?
The first time he came up to me, we were in a group, and we were in a car, and he said, "Hey, how you doing? I'm from Chicago." And I always loved that town, so that kind of... we started the...
That's what did it? The stars went off over that, Chicago?
Well, no, he was great, and he was fun, and
all right, but he just made normal conversation. He didn't comment about your legs or anything like that.
Right. So here's my theory about everything.
I know. So you sound like a normal woman who got married, has kids. So what's the complaint here?
So the complaint is that, and here's what I think the core issue is. I think the core issue with men is entitlement. So I think men that are sure of themselves, they've accomplished a lot in their career, they maybe may or...
All right, so they think that they have the right to be pigs, in other words.
No, not necessarily.
They think they have the right to be an oafish pig and say anything they want to a woman, is what you're saying, right?
Fairly. I think it's the men who, in their younger lives, did not have very good luck with women. They didn't have very good luck with women, and now they've achieved somewhat of career success. And
all right, so are they the ones who are the harassers now?
And they think, hey, I can make these comments to women because now I have clout, I have, some sort of status in the world, and I can throw these comments.
So, the question to you is, have you been assaulted?
Physically assaulted? No.
So you're saying it's a matter of verbal innuendo that's basically offensive to you?
It's verbally innuendo that's offensive, and again, it does keep me up at night because I lay in bed thinking, was it something I wore? Did I sound stupid? Did I not say the right thing?
Do you share this with your husband, that you lay in bed at night awake, that you're fearing that you triggered it?
Yes, we talk about it a lot, and it enrages him. He wants to go throw some fists around because, it's
well, wait a minute. So that's a way of, by you telling him, isn't it sort of a way of telling him how attractive you are?
No, it's my way of saying, you're a man, when I go on for meetings, I will say, how do I look? Is this too sexy? Is this too tight? Am I buttoned up? And he's always like, honey, you look great. And I'm like, you have no idea.
Well, this is complex. So, look, I raised an issue that is a little off the beaten track. Do you listen to the show on an irregular or regular basis?
I would say I do not listen to it faithfully, but I do listen when I'm in the car. So I'm not a regular.
And do you find this topic interesting or boring?
I think it's very interesting. And, I think it's very interesting because what responsibility do the women play in keeping themselves out of harm's way? Because I think that's important.
Well, but this goes to the whole issue of modesty, and I think we have to touch on that at some point today. Take a look at how Muslim women dress. Don't they dress in a very modest way in order to not incite a man's interest in their bodies?
Yes.
All right. So now let's analyze this. We have a society that has been basically Hollywoodized, where the skirts got shorter and tighter, and the lipstick got brighter and brighter, and the blouses got tighter and tighter, until eventually it was like a striptease show everywhere you turned in America. Then along comes a new influence in American society, in the West in general. Let's forget the suicide bombings. Let's forget the radical fanatics. Don't you think that this is a leavening agent in the other direction, that is the more modest way of dress? I know it's an imposition upon women who would say, go to heck, you know what? You have no right to tell me how to dress. If I want to dress in a tight skirt and show off my legs, I'll do it. But you don't have a right to harass me. Is that your attitude?
I do think women need to take responsibility for dressing appropriately.
Well, but you can't. But you carry this to its extreme. Then a woman is walking in the subway in New York, and some idiot comes up and touches her, and then the judge says it's your fault for dressing in a tight skirt. Case dismissed. That has happened as well. You know that.
Right.
All right, so this is a very important sociological topic, and I appreciate your playing along with the call, Caroline. I'm sending you a copy of my great book, Teddy and Me, for the holidays. I hope you'll enjoy it with your children. Now, before we move on to another caller or two, and we still have open lines. I mean, we are pretty good sold out now. I have one open line, honestly. I knew that this would attract attention. How widely it's of interest to people is anyone's guess. You have to go with what's of interest to you. I'm interested in it. And the reason is because that show I mentioned to you, The Affair, in the professor's apartment. She's a French professor visiting in America. She's a professor of medieval love or something. And in clip number 3, they argue about an explicit scene. I want you to hear this one for a moment. Go ahead, Jim, please.
What about you, Professor Soloway?
Me?
What do you make of our conversation?
Well, I'm fascinated, of course.
Oh, do you know much about courtly love?
No.
Sexual assault? There's a chapter in your last book, Descent, that I've been meaning to ask you about. It's the part where you have sex with your wife against a tree. Was that supposed to be a rape?
No, I don't think this is appropriate context to discuss my book.
No, please. We're interested.
See, the thing is, Professor Soloway, when we heard that you were coming to teach, we were all a little nervous. I mean, you have to understand that your reputation precedes you. And I guess I would just feel a lot safer in your class if I understood your attitude toward consent and women in general.
My attitude towards women in general? Well, in general, Audrey, I approve of women. I think you're all great. And no, I did not consider it to be a scene of rape.
What was it then?
Dominant sex?
But it wasn't rape?
No.
And there's a difference.
Yes.
Would you say that Lana consented to that experience?
Well, no, but I think she enjoyed it.
Are you kidding me?
My point is, I think sex can be about both wanting and not wanting. It's a war between the intellect and instinct, between shame and desire, and that's what makes it so interesting. And also, to your first point, frankly, impossible to legislate.
Merveilleux.
Professor, he's a rape apologist.
Oh,
I don't even know why we're asking him. The man basically wrote a self-help book on how to cheat on your wife and get away with it.
That's not how I read Dissent.
Did you read it in English? Because believe us, that book is a training manual for how to be an...
What I read was the account of a courageous man who falls into a true love with a woman who isn't his wife and risks everything to be with her. A kind of a Lancelot. But perhaps I misunderstood.
You could see why I was intrigued by this show on Showtime, because the writing is so good. This is not salacious, by the way. It's something totally different. And some of those lines are original. I've never read them in novels. I've never heard them in movies. The writer is excellent. I like the line, "A war between intellect and instinct is what sex is." That's pretty interesting. And so, again, women, were you the victim of sexual assault? Would you describe it? Men who have been falsely accused, would you describe it? This is the Savage Nation. The phone number is 855-407-282. I'll be right back.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com. Well, all right, so that's the topic I'm doing today. You know, I'm going to maybe move on to the news later. I don't think so. You won't hear the word Trump or Obama, Noah Alinsky. You won't hear the word Jefferson, Founding Fathers. You're not hearing any of that. Talk about sexual assault. That's what we're talking about. I mean, I'm waiting for my lunch. It's raining like crazy out here in the San Francisco area. I love it. Sacramento, they don't even know it's raining. They still think there's a drought. 100-mile-an-hour winds in the Sierra. They're still talking about global warming. So I'm waiting for my soba noodles to come from the Japanese restaurant. I love buckwheat. It's an ancestral thing. What a great noodle that is. I'd rather talk about soba noodles than who Trump is appointing, to be honest. I'd rather talk about the health benefits of buckwheat than who's in, who's out, who's in the elevator, who came up, who came down, who's likely to stay. The Electoral College, Russia. I can't do it. WABC, Nancy, line 1, go ahead, please.
Yes, I would like to say two things. One, Merry Christmas, and I am a victim, and I would like to say to everyone out there, if you know a woman, apparently just a woman for now, who suddenly becomes ugly, nasty, hateful, uses the F word a lot, ask her, point straight up, have you been sexually assaulted? Has someone hurt you in an sexual way?
Right, so what happened to you, Nancy, in a short version?
I was a compromised position, trusting a friend of 30 years. And
did he rape you or what?
It's out.
All right, we'll have to pick this up. I'm out of time. Can we not get graphic, please? And do we ever get graphic to discuss this topic? Penal now.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Warning. The Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of borders, language, culture, and here he is, winner of the National Radio Hall of Fame Award, Michael Savage.
This message is for you. As you know, our founding fathers built the Electoral College to safeguard the American people from the dangers of a demagogue and to ensure that the presidency only goes to someone who is to an eminent degree endowed with the requisite qualifications.
Look who's talking.
Eminent degree. Someone who is highly qualified.
All right, so you got the sitcom C-list.
The Electoral College was created specifically
another one.
to prevent
guys who haven't had a job in 39 years
from becoming president.
There are 538 members of the Electoral College. You
and just 36.
All right, we got the picture. All right, celebrities, so-called celebrities. These are the people who can't buy themselves a Starbucks in Beverly Hills. They're looking to get a free coffee out of an agent somewhere to try to get another job. But now they're trying to swing the election now in the Electoral College video. That's why I'm not talking about it. It's a confederacy of dunces, as they say. So I'd rather talk about sexual assault and consent in today's world. I think it's an interesting topic. It was triggered by the show The Affair, which I said, I didn't like season 1 or 2 that much. I liked 1, 2 wasn't that good. 3 is better than all of them. The writing is better. The acting is better. The directing is better. A lot of women are writing the segments, which is what's making it a little more, nuanced, to use an overused word about nuance. And we're talking about sexual assault. Were you sexually assaulted for real? What is sexual assault? What are the new definitions of sexual assault? Or men are being falsely accused all over this country. As I've said to you on campuses, if a man is targeted by radical feminists for his lack of being politically correct, they can make stuff up. Now, maybe in some cases it's true. Maybe some of these professors were so-called inappropriate to some of their female students. I wasn't there. But to destroy a man by simply saying j'accuse, we're living in fascism as a result of radical feminism. But there is real sexual assault. Let's not lose that. Someone wrote this to me anonymously and said regarding sexual assault, I doubt it has become more common. We just have more record of the occurrences because of increased legal protection and consequent increased awareness and openness about the occurrences and the effects. Then this individual writes, how does this subject relate to our spirituality and about sexuality? And so we're talking about that. And people misinterpreting what I said about the burqa. I wasn't saying that women should wear burqa to prevent sexual assault, because as someone pointed out, women are still raped in the Middle East while wearing burqas. For that matter, they're being raped in Europe wearing burqas. So we're not blaming women for wearing short skirts or tight pants or yoga pants. That's not the purpose of the show. It's a sociological question that goes to the heart of our society today. And that's why I'm talking about it. KVOC Radio. Kate, you're first up. Tell your story. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I was raped 6 years ago by a nurse that I worked with up at the hospital. And
all right. You're a woman. Was he a man or a woman nurse?
No, he was a man.
Okay. Did you report it? Did he go to jail?
No, I didn't. The family didn't want to get embarrassed.
Wait, you didn't want to be embarrassed? Is that it?
My family didn't, yeah.
So you're saying that although you were raped, you didn't report it to avoid the embarrassment of a public hearing, in other words, a trial?
Yes.
And I can hear in your voice that you're carrying this pain to this day.
Yeah.
All right, well, what is the purpose of calling the show and telling us that story? Do you think it's going to relieve you of any of this pain?
I just want people, not to hide it. Report it.
So if, in other words, you'd recommend to any woman listening to not hide it?
Yes.
All right. Well, this is a very, very difficult call for you. I can hear that. You know, in the old days, if you had brothers, the problem would have been taken care of.
Yes.
But we don't live in the old days with the Godfather, with the Lupas. Because anyone who did that to a sister or a brother in Sicily wouldn't last probably 2 hours. That's why there was a low rate of rape in Sicily in traditional societies. Large families, brothers with shotguns, you didn't look at the woman the wrong way. If you looked at the woman the wrong way, you'd probably get killed. Today, though, you can rape a woman and get away with it. That's what you're saying, right?
Exactly.
Well, I'm sorry. I mean, I hope this in some way relieved you of some of the pain. I don't know that it did. It sounds like it made the pain come back to you. There's nothing more I could say, and I don't want to be milking this for a phone call. Now, what about men on the other side of the line here with falsely accused whose lives have been ruined? How about them? Mike on WABC. Is that your story, Mike? Go ahead, please.
Hello, Dr. Savage. I just want to let some of your listeners know that I had a in-law who didn't like me and falsely accused me of abusing her children. I worked as an instructor at a college. I lost my job. I spent several $1,000s in legal fees to clear my name, needed the help and support from my children and relatives and friends that stepped up and spoke up on my behalf.
So what did she said? What you touched them when they were young or something like that?
That is correct.
How did they prove something like that? How did they prove? How did they prove it? How do you disprove it in a court of law? How does that work?
Well, the investigation was able to determine that the children had been coached by the mother.
Oh my God! Well, are there any consequences when the investigation proves that it's all made up? No, you see, this is the perversion of the greatest perversion in our society is the legal system itself, which has been warped by this current generation of lawyers. They have made it so that you can bring charges against anyone for any reason, and even if you're found to be innocent, there are no consequences to the person making the false accusations. That applies to rape, that applies to assault, that applies to defamation. You can make up anything you want and you go away, ha ha ha, I did whatever I wanted, now go to you-know-where. This is the sickness of our legal system. There should be consequences to false accusations, don't you think?
Absolutely. I wish there were.
Well, now listen. See, there's a case in New York right now of a Muslim girl who said she was assaulted by 3 white men who screamed Trump, Trump, Trump in the subway. Well, the investigators went and they found inconsistencies in her statement. And she was not only found to be a liar, but she was arrested for making a false statement. So there is some sort of a safeguard in the law for fake hate crimes. Why are there no such protections in the law for fake sexual assault claims, I wonder? How'd that happen?
Yeah, I don't know. We, consulted and told that it was advisable to prosecute, to flip the coin around and prosecute her for making false accusations, and we were advised to drop it and let it go.
In other words, let's just let it go already. They ruin your life. Why ruin the lives of the children?
Absolutely.
All right, so you took the high road, but you're still hurting from it.
2 years out of work. Like I say, lost my job. Got my name clear, but that didn't mean anybody was going to hire me.
Right, that means, but they'll never hire you again. It's still sitting out there, right?
Right.
Right, so a man is ruined just by saying a word about him. That's the problem. But this doesn't mean there isn't real harassment or real rape, and now we don't know how to deal with it. That's why it's worthy of talking about. And I appreciate you joining the dialogue. So there it is. That's another side of the story. There's 2 sides to the story. Now, what's going on in the military, I want to know. Now, ask yourself a question. You have a warship whose primary role is to blow up the enemy. All right, kill enemy. That's the warship. It's not supposed to be a social experiment for Barack Obama. So you stick women on a closed warship. What do you think is going to happen on a ship that is at sea for long deployments when you have men and women together on the same ship? Tell me what's going to happen. Exactly what's happening right now. Pregnancies, rapes. How does this work? So what is the answer to this? An all-female warship? An all-male warship? Now segregated warships is coming next? It's crazy, the whole thing. No one knows what to do with all of this. I don't have a simple answer. Women belong in the Navy. How do you deal with this problem? I don't have an answer for you. And this is the problem of the integrated military force today. I don't know how they deal with it in Israel. I know that they have fully integrated fighting forces in Israel, except in the special forces. Women are not deployed in the Golani Brigade, the last I checked, or any of the other elite brigades that go out on the most trying missions. They're not, I don't think there are women in those. They're in support roles, but they are in combat roles as well, but not in these specialized brigades. How did they deal with this in the Israeli military? How did the Chinese deal with this issue when the women and men integrated into the military? Some of the women can, they're the toughest women on earth in the military. No one's saying women can't be tough. Take a look at Runa Rousey, whatever her name is. You watch women in the ring, I don't care who you are as a man, you don't want to get on the wrong side of that foot in that hand, right? So we've seen that women can be as ferocious tigers as men, if not more so. That's not the issue. The issue is, how does this work in an evolving societal setting? And I think that's why this topic is so worthy of discussion. And I'm showing you that this has political ramifications that go well beyond the topic we are discussing now. And if you care to join us from the military situation, from the Israeli military, the Chinese military, the American military, I'll take those calls as well when I return right here on the Savage Nation.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com. Just as a side note, that murderous lowlife Dylan Roof was convicted in the racially motivated church massacre. You talk about a lack of justice. No matter what is done to him, the one who killed all of those innocent black people, no matter what is done to white nationalist Dylan Roof is not sufficient from my point of view. Where's the justice in this? He was convicted of 33 hate crime charges against him in the Charleston church massacre trial. That's justice? These nice black people praying in the historic Emmanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church in 2015. He said he hoped to start a race war. Well, what's going to happen now, I don't know. Should he be executed? Oh, he should be executed, but not humanely. No, he should be released into an all-black wing of the worst prison in South Carolina, and the guard should be given an hour off. Now, that's never going to happen. So there's no justice in our justice system. We know that. Wherever you turn, there's no justice. So we're talking about the portraits here of victimhood on both sides. We go to Melissa on WABC. Now, you say you are a victim of one of the worst cases of assault on file, Melissa. Please tell us what that is.
I actually home from Detroit from a club with my friends. I got a flat tire. A gang of guys kidnapped me off the freeway, about 8 men, and for the next 12 hours I was held captive with the gun pointed at my head. All of them took turns raping me. I tricked the gang leader into convincing him that I would not go to the police if he let me go, and he did let me go, which was very, very unique in itself when you hear the story.
Did you have them arrested?
Absolutely. I went to the Detroit police right away, and by the way, they were phenomenal. They were professionals and treated me with dignity and respect.
And where did these animals wind up?
They all but one went to prison. 2 of them stood trial. Everybody else pleaded out. The 2 that stood trial, one of them was a drug dealer who absolutely wasn't involved in the actual kidnapping. I went to his place later with one of the gang members. Now, he got off not guilty. 2 men are...
Have you been threatened by them from prison?
I have not been threatened, and I never feared that I would be threatened.
Why?
These were thugs, and these were...
Why? If these thugs would rape you, why wouldn't they have someone hurt you?
You know what? I could sense the dynamics of the gang while I was in the midst of all of that, and you go into survival mode and you do what you have to do to live. These guys were uneducated young thugs, and they actually thought that I was the Queen's daughter because I'm Canadian and I was over in Detroit, partying with my friends. And they called me the Queen's daughter instead of calling me my name. So, you know, in the way that they interacted with each other, the more violent and the more mean they were towards me and physical they were towards me, the higher their pecking order in the gang. So that gang mentality was so obvious to me that it just wasn't normal.
Let me ask you this, Melissa. Do you listen to the Savage Nation regularly?
Absolutely.
What do you think about this topic today of sexual assault both ways?
Well, I work as an advocate right now, and I have actually helped 8 men so far that were convicted wrongly of sexual assault. And I think that's even worse than a woman
convicted wrongly. Oh, so you've actually taken the other side.
You know what? I'm pretty open about all sides. I'm actually an expert on sexual assault and the aftermath.
You know, I'd love to know more. I mean, how much of this goes on? Can a woman simply in a workplace say, "He touched me," and that's the end of the guy's life?
Well, I wouldn't go to that extreme. I think there are different levels of it. But yeah, you're darn right. A woman can ruin a man's life, absolutely. But men have to be a little bit more. What's the word I'm looking for? They have to be a little bit more aware of the manipulation that a woman can you know. You know, women are pretty evil sometimes when you get down to it. They can manipulate a man, and sexual assault is about power. So if they can get a guy, you know, get the power over a guy by falsely accusing him, they'll do it.
Well, you're a woman who apparently has paid the maximum penalty in terms of your femaleness. You've been raped, gang raped no less, and you were strong enough to figure your way out of it and survive it. And now you're an advocate for both sides. That's pretty admirable, Melissa. That's amazing.
Oh.
That's an amazing story, Melissa. Thank you for calling the Savage Nation. If you want to continue with this, we have one open line at 855-407-282. I'll be right back.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282.
It's raining like crazy here in San Francisco. Don't tell that. Hush, hush, don't tell that to the warmists. The drought is over. The reservoirs are overflowing. The sluice gates are roaring. Don't tell it to Jerry Brown. There are still water restrictions in the great Golden State. Fountains are not turned on. After all, we have to save all that water. See, once you let a bureaucrat get control of something, they never let go. I guess that's known as big government. We'll see what happens with the new administration. We'll see if they let go. I hope so. The Interior Secretary is a great guy. Talk about that. He took a Navy SEAL, and he's going to be head of the Interior Department, which is unbelievably great after the psychos that we've had in power for these, like almost a decade now. So that's why I want to talk about other things, because what's going to be is what's going to be. And we'll have to wait and see. And there's some good, there's some bad, there's some this, there's some that, there's some left, there's some right. But as a member of the media, I'm going to sit here on the outside looking in. I never expected to become part of the very thing I was covering. How can you be part of something you're covering and be independent? That's what I'd like to know. So I'll continue to be independent. It's that simple. Brandon on KSFO, falsely accused. Were you falsely accused, Brandon?
Yes. How are you, Dr. Savage? By the way, my father recently passed away, and you're really the only voice of reason I have at this point.
Well, I'm sorry that you lost your father. That's a loss you'll never get over.
No, I know. But on to the story. I was in the Marine Corps around 2010. I went to a party on base. I ended up having relations with a female that was there. Nothing came of it. I left the next day. Long story short, turned out that she was married, and she was caught. I don't know, the way her clothes were or whatever. She had gotten drunk the night before. Her husband got skeptical. She cried rape. NCIS came to my room, grabbed me, fingerprinted me, interrogated me. I didn't hear about it for about a year. It was my last year in the Marine Corps, so I was supposed to deploy. They didn't allow me to deploy because I was under investigation. A year later, we did the Article 32 hearing, which is basically they hear the case out in the military and they decide whether they're going to go through. We were in there for about 6 hours. I had a civilian attorney and a military attorney, and she went back on her story. in the courtroom. Long story short, they ended up charging me with adultery, and because I had another incident early on in my Marine Corps term, they gave me another than honorable discharge. So I lost my benefits. I was based out here in California. I'm originally from New York. I didn't end up moving back to New York because I was so embarrassed. Most of my family doesn't really talk to me anymore.
So in other words, she ruined your life in plain English?
I mean, I wouldn't say she ruined my life because that would just mean that I'm giving up. But it's really hard now. I have severe trust issues with any sort of social interaction with females now. I usually don't trust them right off the bat just because of what happened.
Well, let me just see if I follow this, Brandon. You had consensual relations with a woman, then she said you assaulted her the next day?
Yes. I guess apparently her husband didn't know where she was that evening. So when she came home, she was a little bit hungover, and
oh, so she said you did something to her against your will, against her will.
Yeah, I'm just assuming that she didn't want to. When you get married in the military, you get a lot of good stuff like free housing and all that. I'm assuming she was either afraid of her husband or she didn't want to lose those benefits.
Brandon, do you currently have a job?
Yes, sir. I work in retail. It's been very hard for me to get a good job due to the fact that when they run when they do a background.
Brandon, I'm going to do something for you that I never do, but I want you to do this, Brandon. I have some really great people who advertise on this show. They're really great Americans. And I'm going to ask you to just send your email to Jim. We'll hold it. I can't guarantee anything. Maybe someone listening to this story will offer you something, Brandon, that might be a life changer for you that's good. I don't know what's going to come of it. You don't know who's listening and what they might do. So please stay on the line and give Jim your email. Maybe a person, maybe never mind an advertiser. Maybe there's a person listening in the San Francisco area. I assume he lives in the area, Jim, right? Does he, Clint? Lives in the Bay Area? Doesn't matter where he lives. If you listen to this man's story and you feel he was unjustly, let us say, ruined, for want of a better word. He's a kid who went in the Marines, had his life basically put on hold from a woman who then retracted a story. He's paid a pretty big price. There must be someone out there who wants to do the right thing. I don't know. It's that simple. Sue on WABC, line 2. What's your story? Go ahead.
Hey, Dr. Savage. I used to work at a small college, and there came a situation with a young man. He was kind of a Casanova on campus. We knew that, but like nothing bad. But he got involved with a younger girl, and apparently something happened. And well after they were broken up, I believe, she came back to the administration and told them that she felt that it wasn't consensual and that he had, raped her or whatever. And so this guy who had been like a junior at that point, maybe a senior, his whole reputation was ruined. And I feel bad because I was kind of part of that, like of the shunning of him kind of like on campus. And
no, wait. You were just a friend of the girl or just one of the women who took her side?
Administration too at the time. And when the girl had come to the administration, of course, like I feel like we didn't really get the whole story because we just kind of accepted her story and didn't, consider his reputation or anything like that,
Well, are things changing today in the colleges? Are people willing to listen to both sides before they rush to judgment?
Well, I don't think that happened then. I think that his reputation...
So you're saying you feel guilt for what you did by just rushing to judgment?
I feel guilt for not talking to him and saying, what was your side of the story? And so now I have 2 girls growing up. And so my point is that, no, I don't want anything bad to happen to them when they go to college or, start dating. I have a daughter who's 15. It might happen soon. But I teach them that, no, it's not right what men would do, but you have to take responsibility for your actions. You have to not put yourself in situations where you would be in danger. And I don't know, that seems like common sense to me, and I don't know why that's wrong. I feel like that's a wrong position to hold.
All right, I'm listening, I'm learning, I'm hearing, and I thank you for calling. Very interesting show to me. Let's go to KLIF in Dallas. Bob, What is the Texas view of all of this stuff?
Yeah, several years ago, I was initially going through a divorce, and when it became clear to my wife at the time that I was probably going to get custody of the child that we had together, toddler age, she filed a police report claiming domestic violence, and that ended up going to court, of course, with the civil case. There's actually a law in California, and it protects women. It's a really good law, but it is abused. And basically a woman can call the police, make a report, make a statement that, domestic abuse, domestic violence, in whatever form that may be, and they will issue the temporary restraining order. And that is granted initially, and then you go to your first hearing, and long story short, there was an officer involved in this first incident with the report, and, this guy saved me. He actually ended up being one of 6 officers that came to take my son away from me. A couple months after this was, the restraining order went through, and he told me that, this report that was filed, she made this claim requesting this temporary restraining order, and in his report, she had falsified some statements, and he told me, if you don't have a lawyer, get one, and have him subpoena me.
This is by what I'm seeing in the press, the lawyers automatically have the woman claim such things in order to seize the children. Whether it's true or not doesn't matter to the lawyers. They're so low. That's what they're doing. There was just the high-profile case of the actor Brad Pitt. Remember what the wife, whatever her name is, the actress? I'm supposed to know her name. Well, I don't know her name, Jim. What was it? Angelina Jolie automatically said he got abusive on an airplane to the children, therefore the children should be hers. Do you remember that case?
Yeah, no, I do. All
right, so that's the standard maneuver from these low-life lawyers, and the courts apparently don't even question such statements, and now it's happening from the top to the bottom. No one seems to be immune from this, and I think the pendulum needs to swing to a more balanced position. Sometimes there is abuse, but a lot of times there is no abuse. It's a way of simply gaining control of the divorce trial, isn't it?
Right, and it got worse, because by our third session in court, she had then claimed that I had been sexually inappropriate with, her daughter, which was the...
Oh, gosh. And then they raised the stakes. Once the case got weaker, they raised the stakes.
Yeah, and that's where, fortunately, I had a good judge. I had a really good lawyer, and he did subpoena the officer, and the judge said she was going to throw the case out, but she ended up recanting that. There were no repercussions, and we're 7-8 years later, and, I'm just hoping someday, my son doesn't come to me and ask...
Are you not allowed to see your children?
No, I ended up in the long run with custody, and, He's been doing great. It's been great, and we're now, after 8 years, just finally...
What you're saying, though, is you went through the worst and you came out okay, but you still were dragged through the hot coals.
I was dragged through the hot coals, and the only advice I would have for, let's say a father that's going through this situation with a girlfriend or a wife is, when this comes down, break off all contact. Do not, especially, even if there's not a restraining order involved, which you can't communicate, do not communicate at all unless it's in writing via email, and that's really the only writing I would say, or handwritten letter where you can document, and you've basically you've got to watch your back at all times. You can't go anywhere, you can't do anything, you can't say anything. At the time, I was made it through the background investigation and my polygraph for the police academy where I was living at the time, and this all came up, and that all went out the window. And thankfully since then I've always been in the trades, and now I'm in the Bay Area, and I'm doing really well. And it's the point where the son that we had together isn't aware of any of this, and I'm hoping it stays that way.
And where is your ex-wife in all of this today? Has she recanted? Is she sorry for what she did?
Yeah, she's local, and we were able to... It's just the last year that we've finally been able to start communicating. But what's hard for me is that, there's other things going on with her, but in her mind, she doesn't really acknowledge that she did this, and it's really hard for me to interact with her in a non-business-like or business-like, transaction, because that's all I can remember.
That's understandable. I wouldn't expect you to get lovey-dovey again.
No, but it's even hard in the day-to-day and communicating about school and doctors and whatnot. It's hard because
Yeah, in other words, you keep it cut and dried. I get it.
Yeah. Anyway.
All right. Well, that's a heck of a story, and I thank you for actually calling in on it. And we're going to continue with this for a few more minutes. I got to take this call out of New York because this is one that's as bad as it can get. John, on WABC, tell us your story. Go ahead, please.
Yes, Michael. I heard all these conversations. I've been on the phone waiting, and this prior caller was quite similar to mine, except for I haven't had the contact has been completely broken with my children, and you go into court and on a divorce proceeding, and they take a character assassination against you. And I don't know if these women have a blue book of divorce on how to do it, and their attorneys. The attorneys in the courts in New York particularly enable these women to bring unfounded charges up against you based on your children. Like, in other words, I had one child who made up a story to support her mother's side of the divorce, that I abused the youngest child, who was not of an age to be even aware of such a allegation. And unfortunately, what happens is I'm going through the divorce proceeding, and I get a letter in the mail that there was an investigation that came out unfounded. I wasn't even aware of any investigation. In New York, they don't interview you, but they'll interview the children, the mother.
No, I understand that the court system in New York is the most warped in the entire world. I've heard that from many people. It's been taken over by the radicals of a certain breed, and they have crucified men left and right. And you apparently are telling me you were falsely accused of assaulting your own children?
Not rape, but assaulting. And
were you tried and found guilty and go to prison?
No, they wouldn't go that far because they lose the power of the purse. They want to keep the purse coming, to keep the money coming.
So they just did it to manipulate you? What a lawyer, huh? The lawyer on the other side, what an animal he must be.
No, the former.
Well, the whole legal profession. We all know how much we love lawyers. Let's hope Trump doesn't hire too many lawyers. We have enough of them right now. Thanks for the call. I'll be right back.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now. 855-400-SAVAGE. 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com. It is the non-Trump day on the Savage Nation. No Obama, no Trump, no Congress, no Senate, no Electoral College, no tower, who's going up, who's going down, who's in, who's out. I can't take it. Congressman begs Electoral College voters to block Trump. Is that something we can talk about? Can we wait till Monday? Or the moron celebrities of the C-list who can't get jobs putting out a tape asking electors to be heroes and vote against Trump. I mean, these are people that haven't had a job since Danny DeVito was 6'2". Wife accused, what? Look at this one. Scott on KSFO, line 9. Go ahead, please.
Dr. Savage, how are you today?
Please go on.
You, for a long time, I'm across the water from you on business.
Can you just, sir, we have 30 seconds. Just tell us your story, please.
Just had to call in. So, went through a divorce after 22 years of marriage a couple years ago in El Dorado County. When things weren't going the way my ex-wife wanted to, they served a motion suggesting and implying, actually just claiming, an inappropriate relationship with my youngest, then minor son.
Who is the lawyer? What kind of lawyer makes up such a statement about men and then can get up in the morning and not cut their own throats in front of a mirror?
Join the Savage Nation. Call now. 855-400-SAVAGE. 855-400-7282. Warning. The Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, winner of the National Radio Hall of Fame Award, Michael Savage.
So now a lot of the Eddies out there are upset. They're writing stuff like, whale, sexual assault. I'd rather hear what Teddy had for dinner last night. Then another one writes, Savage, you being blackmailed? You could talk about some men's stuff like World War II or cars or something, if you don't want to be political. See, this is what I mean by the limited mentality of the audience. In other words, you want me to just sit here and do what everyone else does and regurgitate websites? You could do it yourself. Then another one, Anthony Tony Morano, whoever this is, says, the interview with Paul Watson of Sea Shepherd was a pure fantasy. It was a regurgitation of worn-out lies. Sad Michael Savage fell for the lies. Motive is simple, old-fashioned Japan bashing. Well, we were talking about the Norwegians and the Russians as well, Anthony. So, you see, you're never going to please all of the people all of the time, and especially people with limited mentalities. They want to hear the same regurgitation every day of what's on the websites. Trump good, liberals bad. Day and night, the same thing. No criticism permitted. Not one cynical or critical comment about the new king. Do you remember back in 2009 when Obama was first elected? And I would get calls from the Obamaites who would say, give Obama a chance. Don't be a blind follower. Give him a chance. Don't criticize him. What is my job in media supposed to be? Am I supposed to just be a public relations arm for everything that Trump does? Where is that written? That because I supported him now I'm supposed to support everything he says and does? That's not the way this works. In case you don't remember, our job in the media is to remain independent, even of people we support and still do support. And when they start to appoint liberals, we're supposed to say, wait a minute, that doesn't seem to be right. So, my friends, I will continue to do it as I see best. And if you don't like listening, I can't help it. 855-407-282. And you know what we're talking about. And we'll keep talking about it. Why is that a bad topic, conserving the environment? Why shouldn't we take that issue away from the liberals who use it for power? This is the problem with people, the limited mentality. Here, Save the Whale show made for terrible and boring radio, says Guido. Sorry, Savage. The average person couldn't give a rat's behind about the whales. Saving whales will not improve his or her life. How about a show in which you attempt to save the males? Very smart, Guido. I am trying to save the males today and the females, but I guess you don't like that either because I haven't repeated the word founding fathers enough times today. What said Ronald Reagan? Ronald Reagan! Look, the dinosaurs who listen to talk radio are not going to dictate the direction of my show. I'm going to do what I find interesting. It's that simple. I am a staunch conservative, have been for years. Oh, let's go back to birth now. Was I a conservative in the womb? I don't know. I can't answer that. I really don't know. There are some probably who were conservative before they were born. I'm sure that they can prove that to you. But I've done my share of trying to warn America about the dangers of liberalism. I would say 22 years is a pretty good track record. But isn't there a limit to the same story every day? Huh? What are you going to do if Trump drops the issue of immigration control and doesn't build a wall? Tell me what's going to happen. What are you going to do? Say I'm wrong for saying he should have built the wall because he promised to build a wall? Oh, how dare you criticize him? You're a Judas. You have no right saying it. He didn't really mean a wall. He meant the idea of some kind of wall. He's better than Hillary anyway. Okay, you have it any way you want. I'll still do the whales. I thought it was an exceptional show. And if it didn't resonate with the average guy out there, I can't help it. And today I'm doing a show on sexual assault. Why? Because it's a very important topic. It is ruining lives on both sides. Women who are assaulted and have to, keep the assault quiet. Their lives are ruined. Men who are falsely accused, have children taken away from them or go to jail. Their lives are ruined. This is more a subject about the evils of the legal system than it is about women or men. It's the legal system that needs reform. You want me to start talking about tort reform? Whatever happened to that? Remember when Bush came along, he was going to do tort reform, remember that, and rein in some of the scummy lawyers? What happened to him immediately? The American Trial Lawyers Association, the American Bar Association, filled with the worst people in the United States of America. Traitors to the truth, traitors to honesty, traitors to decency, traitors to patriotism. They jumped all over Bush, and he never went down that road. Well, how about this one? This is for Donald Trump and his inner circle. How about some tort reform? How about reining in the lawyers? Is that a good topic? Am I allowed to ask that question? Or are we going to see lawyers running things again? See, that's what I'm talking about. So we're talking about a subject that has great meaning, which is sexual assault on both sides. And let's take some calls. Adir on WABC in New York. Go ahead. What's your story?
Hey, Michael, how are you? Long-time listener. I've been listening to you since I was 8 years old with my father in the car.
That's funny. That's a funny statement. So you must be 30 now.
Well, it's been a while. So I was in the IDF. I was a Israeli soldier, and you were asking about how the IDF dealt with women in the military. And what I wanted to say was that we actually, it sounds kind of funny, but we gate them off. You know, we put them in living quarters that men can't see them, men can't access them, and that's...
Oh my God, how sexist! You mean you don't put them in barracks with men and expect men to want to have relations with them? How sick can you be in Israel?
Do you know what would happen if a man was caught with a woman on base? You go to jail. There's no such thing. You have to put them away. I don't mean that in a second.
Oh, that's going to go over well with my audience. Put them away. Lock them up.
Michael, your audience loves this kind of talk. This is what kind of audience you have. This is why we voted you in number one.
Okay, so in plain English, in the Israeli army, women are integrated in the military at all levels, correct?
Women are integrated. Listen, I was actually a special operations combat engineer. We didn't have women fighting alongside of us, but we did have women.
Well, wait, let's take some of the elite brigades, like the Golani Brigade, and there's another one whose name I forget, and I don't mean any disrespect. Are women in the special forces brigades?
No, absolutely not. And the reason, and this is what I have heard, because we understand the nature of our enemy. We understand what kind of savages they are. And if we put women on the front lines and God forbid they were captured, you know what would happen to a woman? It's a horrible thought. You don't want a woman, being captured. And it's not because we want to disrespect women. It's because we care for them. We care for the daughters of Israel.
How come they don't know that here in America?
Because thank God Trump was elected. So now we're starting to see. Unfortunately, he wasn't elected by the popular vote, but now we're starting to see the real Eddies, what they're talking about.
Well, we got Mattis in defense. We have Flynn in Homeland Security. Those appointments alone are making me feel much better about America.
Real men, Michael. Real men like you. Real men like me. Real men like the Americans that founded this country.
All right, so let me ask you this. This topic I'm talking about today, is this too airy-fairy for you?
What airy-fairy, Michael? Your audience loves you because you don't talk about what everybody else talks about. You dare to diverge. You dare to talk about things that people actually care about. Fine politics, every day, politics in, politics out. Fine. Let's talk about, I love it when you talk about sexual addiction or all these kinds of things. This is what gets people ticking. This is what.
How about the whale show? Is that too hippy-dippy?
Hey, look, everybody loves animals, even the most hardcore man.
Well, that's right. That's correct. The most hard man. I know a man. Listen to this. I have to be very cautious what I say. He said he was riding on a bus to visit his old buddies at the Special Warfare Unit somewhere in San Diego, and he was crossing the street to walk over to the base, and he saw a little worm crawling across the street, and he got down and picked up the worm and put it into a bush. And he said, this is one of the toughest men you could ever meet. And he said there was a tour bus nearby filled with seniors, and they broke into applause for what he had done. They noticed that he went and leaned down to pick up a worm. Can you believe that story?
Beautiful story.
I know another man who's been in 5 wars. He's fought in 5 wars. Paratrooper, doctor, great musician, won't mention his name. He's a pescatarian. He won't eat any animal right now. He can't. He said, I've done enough killing in my life. Would you believe that one? So, there's different levels of consciousness in this world. And It's very hard to appeal to all the consciousnesses at one time. But a call from you means a lot to me. And I thank you, Adir, from calling from New York City. If you care to comment on the Savage Nation, I guess I could play a Trump tape to... let's get a Trump sound so people feel better. They're listening to talk radio. Maybe we could throw in the word George Washington and Jefferson at the same time and say Founding Fathers and wrap myself in the flag. Maybe we could play a Trump tape in the elevator, hugging someone. Wait, we have any Trump? No Trump today? We have Trump with the... Obama again with the racism? Oh, God, the sound is awful. Jay Johnson, him, prison. Lynch said that there's no technical interference in the election from the Russians. How did she go off script? She's now on the side of Trump? How did that happen? She must be looking for a job. Celebrities appeal to Electoral College to not vote for Trump. That's just a joke. Okay, let me play a little 05. We have to have a touch of Obama to make our day. Let's hear 05.
Since day one, my administration has been focused on creating opportunities for all people.
Oh, I just got tachycardia.
By almost every measure, this country is better off than it was when I started.
I got tachycardia. Yay, right on!
But what we've also long understood is that some communities have consistently had the odds stacked against them.
Here we go.
Especially true for boys and young men of color.
There we go. Okay, stop. I've had enough. It's enough already. 8 years of it. Stop it! Stop. Why is he doing more of the racial baiting than he's ever done before? Answer, because he's going to be out of a job soon. He's looking for a bigger job where you can use race baiting. That would only be UN. I mean, that's a big job. How are you going to get a job in the UN unless you race bait and hate America and white people? That's what the whole UN is about. Hate Jews, hate white people, hate America, hate Christians. So there you go. He's looking for a new job, in my opinion. You happy now? Did you get your money's worth? I'll be back in a minute.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now. 855-400-SAVAGE. 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com. Where's this country going to be in 30 years on the romance sexual level? Given that we've fallen to this level after the sexual, that's a sociological question. Given the sexual revolution of the 1960s and where we've come today, with a total debasement of our society, a total debasement from the top to the bottom, a sewer pipe in every household, a sewer pipe in every iPhone, a virtual porno shop in everyone's hand. Is there no limits to where a society can fall? When is the pendulum going to swing in the other direction? I mean, that's almost a bigger question than what I'm talking about. Am I calling for censorship? I don't know. What am I calling for? You want your 8-year-old to walk around with an iPhone, he can look at pornography and be ruined for the rest of his life because he can never match up to the man he is seeing in that movie? Or your daughter, she sees a woman and she's a girl and she feels sexually humiliated and inferior, and she will always carry that in her head because of the pornographers who put out the stuff in the iPhone, the porno. There should be no controls of her, right? You believe in total freedom? So yesterday, all of the tech giants go into the thing, to the tower, and they come out and they stab him in the back anyway. I mean, why, you couldn't predict that? They went in. He thought he was going to make them his friend. They came out and gave him a stabbing anyway. What did he expect to happen? You're going to take a guy like from Microsoft, and he didn't even show up on the shirt. On the shirt sent a factotum. And the shirt said he's the real boss of bosses. On the shirt said he's the Godfather. On the shirt said he's bigger than Trump by not showing up. He sent an underling. That was a real slap in the face. What did he expect to happen? The next day, the very next day, Mr. Bezos of the Washington Post attacks him left and right in the Washington Post front page. So what was the meeting about? It's not going the way we want it to go. And I must say right now, and I'll say it right now, I don't think this is being thought out carefully enough. I see a helter-skelter approach to the transition. I don't know who is in charge. I think there's a war going on between the so-called conservative side and the liberal Republican side. I don't know who's winning. I think one day it's one faction, the next day it's another. And I think it's a car that's careening along, going like jerking along on a highway. It doesn't seem to be a well-oiled transition. and I am going to say it. What should I do? Hold it back because I supported Donald Trump and still do? Yeah, I'll say it, okay? We're 1,000% better than if she had won. I get that. I've said that. What did I say to you? If we get 20% of what he promised, we'd still be 1,000% better off than we would have gotten under her. We're not going to have to put up with this rubbish about racism every second, or sexism, or hear about bathrooms again for 4 or 8 years about the plight of transsexuals. That's what you would have had with Hillary Clinton. In addition to stabbing our allies in the back, in addition to currying favor with our enemies. So those days are over. That's a good thing. But I think that the transition team needs some kind of control. Somebody mature has to take the wheel of this transition. It doesn't seem to be going in a very thoughtful manner. So that's what I think. Now let's go back to this issue. Line 7. Go ahead, please, Sarah. You have a very important point to make. Please do so.
I am a sexual assault nurse examiner. So
You're a sexual assault nurse examiner? I think I just lost you on the cell phone. Now, this is interesting. A nurse who is a forensic investigator is an important call for us. Sarah, please call us back. And because you have an interesting sort of clinical viewpoint of this issue, I'd love to hear from you if you can get back to us. Clint, keep that line open. It's raining like crazy here in the San Francisco area. But I know we'll have to take her after the break if she can hold on because we're running out of time again. Will someone not tell Jerry Brown in Sacramento that it's raining and the drought is over? They're liable to, all the bureaucrats in the California Department of the Environment are liable to have a heart attack if they hear there's 100-mile-an-hour winds up in the Sierra and it's raining. I mean, there goes the entire agenda. What do you do now? Not turn the fountains on in the spring? Idiots!
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
Hey, friends, give truth a chance on the Savage Nation. Let's just go where the truth takes us. It's like a river that winds its way along, and it goes left and right and up and down and up slopes, down slopes. And we're dealing with fake news, fake science, fake talk shows, fake campaigns against electors, fake accusations against Russia, fake stories about global warming. And I think we got to keep looking at the evidence. Now, we're going to talk about the sexual assault issue for a moment longer with Sarah, who's calling in this rainstorm. She's a forensic investigator, which is, I hope, a unique perspective. Sarah, thanks for waiting. So what do you do as a forensic investigator looking into claims of sexual assault?
Well, first and foremost, I'm a nurse, and I became a forensic examiner. I got into it after working in the emergency room for several years. So what I do is, and I do this mostly now, I'm not an ER nurse anymore. I've received a really large amount of training, and
But Sarah, what is it you do? A person says they were assaulted. What do you do as an investigator?
Yeah, so I'm activated by law enforcement. So if somebody says that they were victimized, sexually assaulted, and they go to the emergency room, for example, law enforcement is called, and then law enforcement does a basic, quick interview with the victim. I call them a patient. If I'm a nurse, they call me. I meet them at my exam center. I collect the evidence that you would not want police officers collecting from a sexual assault victim, from their various private areas, and taking very sensitive photographs of all of their injuries, like if they were strangled, if they have hickeys on their breasts, to keep this a family show. There's a great amount of evidence that can be found on these victims. So my job is to take forensic photographs of their injuries.
Those obvious cases of sexual assault are not even the issue of today's show. Those are cases of clear sexual assault. But what do we do in the case of a false accusation? There's no way to find evidence of assault when there is no assault, is there?
I examine all of those. So just as much as we want to put away guilty people, we exonerate innocent people. So we do several suspect exams a month as well. I've examined several suspects who you can clearly tell had nothing to do with it. So the purpose of their evidence collection...
How do you... Well, okay, without getting graphic, you go and you get the suspect and what? You take a semen sample, I would assume, or a saliva sample?
For example, on somebody who said that she was touched by a man's hand in a private area, we're not going to find his hand cells inside of the female patient. We're going to find her cells on his hands because wet transfers to dry, if that makes sense. Same on his private area. So if he has a lack...
Wait, those are obvious cases of sexual assault. I'm concerned with the more subtle forms of sexual assault. What about a woman in an elevator and a man touches her behind? That's sexual assault, isn't it?
Yes.
But there's no evidence that it occurred unless there's an eyewitness, right?
Yeah, or a video. Absolutely, there's none. And those are common, really common.
Well, I'm saying, but that's the kind of thing that you can't do any forensic investigation on unless there's video running in the elevator, for example.
Yeah, there is some. Another thing is the purpose of our exam. If the police feel like there's no evidence that's going to be produced, and because, this is still the most underreported crime, which is understandable. It's very embarrassing to go through these exams. And a lot of times, these suspects, they know that if there, was some evidence left there, they know about that. They know about DNA. So they'll say that she was willing to do it. So there's a lot of discrepancies in some of the stories, but we can prove then, in a lot of cases, that maybe she wasn't so into it based on our training and education and our experience. So sometimes what they do when we find nothing, which is a lot of the time we find no injuries to her private area, is they'll put the exam that we've done, the forensic exam, it's a state form, they'll put it down in the police interview with the suspect, and they'll say, hey, we've had this nurse do an exam, and she found something. They kind of bluff their way through it at times, and at least in our jurisdiction, I know that they've done that. And then they'll just start rattling off everything that happened. A lot of confessions come out that way. So it's still not worth nothing for these girls to agree to come in and do these exams. There's an educational component to it. Well, I always tell them, I'm really glad you came in to do this. This person has probably done it before, and he'll do it again. And if he has done it before and they didn't report, you can almost certainly say he's going to do it again. So we put some of the responsibility onto our victims. So I'd like people who are listening to know that they're probably not the first victim, and if they didn't come forward, maybe they wouldn't have been victimized themselves. And that also, it's not about sex, it's about power. The arousal comes from the overpowering of somebody. So, people...
Sarah, are you located here in the San Francisco area?
No, Bakersfield.
Okay, well, wherever you're located, what % of your cases are those of same-sex assault?
Same-sex assault, I haven't seen not one this year, but we have seen them. Not this year, this month. I haven't seen not one this month.
What about in prisons where rape is very common? Are you ever called into prisons?
Sure. Yes, we do examine. We have a contract with all of the correctional facilities. And what's tricky about that is that a lot of it is consensual, although prison sex is not consensual. It's not something you can consent to. So,
yeah, but don't the prisons give out condoms today? Because they know that sex between the men, for example, or the inmates, is fairly regular?
Not that I'm aware of, because the way it's explained to us is that you can't have consensual sex in prison. It's just not allowed. So
I thought I read recently that prisons are actually distributing condoms because rape is so common. That it's a way of limiting disease.
Yeah, maybe our volume will go down if that's the case. We do see prisons. I'm not aware of that. I'll have to ask them the next time I have a meeting with them. But
as a person, before we go, let's look at the bigger picture here. Do you think there's a higher incidence of sexual assault today than there was 100 years ago? Or is it just that it's better reported?
I do. I think that the disgusting TV shows and the glamorization of violence, I think that it has let, some of our youngest perpetrators, I can't even believe where they got some of their ideas. Movies, they're seeing pornography in their families' homes, which is a crime.
You mean rap stars like Kanye West, who have lyrics that glorify rape and abuse and domination?
Absolutely, because I've examined a suspect that was 10 years old, caught in the act, and it's just horrific where these kids are getting these ideas and what they're doing. So I think that if it's increased for young children, it's definitely increasing for the older population. And we've seen extremely violent cases this year. I mean, over the top murders. I mean, we do the death examination as well when there's a sex assault. And we've never seen cases like you would never put it in a movie because it would be too disturbing for people to watch.
Are you saying that the level of violence is worse than you've ever seen it in the last year?
Yes.
Why? What do you ascribe that to the increase in violence?
You have a Trump supporter here, so of course I'm going to go through and say that the police are being stripped of their just the authority in society. It seems like the authority is resting within these groups that don't have the best interest of their society in mind. Are
you saying because they're not afraid of the police, they're committing more violent crimes, the perpetrators?
I think that might be part of it, but just the police presence is a little bit different in our town. They're trying to maintain their presence to keep society safe, but they're just not necessarily able to. There's been a lot of budget cuts here. And
because Obama has so attacked the police, the authority of the police has diminished and the authority of the thug has increased.
Absolutely. And I'm friends with several police officers, and they don't want to quit, but they do. They're fed up with everything that they're dealing with, that they're just being labeled as horrible people.
Yeah, I know. Well, this is all because of an 8-year war against the police by this wonderful, kind man who is revising his own history as the hours go by. Sarah, this has been, I think, a very enlightening conversation. I hope people have enjoyed it. And I hope you keep listening to and calling the Savage Nation. I'm sending you a copy of Teddy and Me because it's a nice book for the holidays that is kind of innocent in a way. It has just joy in it rather than hate in it. Wow. WFTL in Florida, DAX, what's your comment, please? Go ahead, please.
Yeah, Michael, I was listening. Well, I listen almost every day when I can, and I just want to tell you how wonderful the whale program was yesterday. I'm a fellow biologist, practiced for 20 years, and then I ended up going to seminary, and now I'm an Episcopal priest, but also a sexual abuse victim. And we need to let people know that there's, first of all, life after sexual abuse. You can be a healthy person, and to be willing to speak out and to get help. It's one of those things that people don't want to talk about because of the embarrassment and concern of what people will think. And I was quiet for almost 20 years about it, never told anyone. Then I had the opportunity to talk about it, and it was life-changing for me.
Well, it's a pretty big jump from biologist to priest, but in a way it really isn't. We talked about the word dominion yesterday, and where it says in Genesis that man shall have dominion over all the animals that are on the earth. Dominion does not mean conquest and murder. It also can mean being a good shepherd of the animals, and I think that was a big breakthrough for the listeners to understand that.
Exactly, it was wonderful. The very spiritual basis of being a conservationist, being a conservative, to take care of everything.
But you're an enlightened man who's been struggling all his life with ideas and thoughts and who you are. You don't represent the majority of listeners to this show. Most of them are very robotic. I'm sorry to tell you, a good percentage of talk radio listeners, especially the men, are robotic, one-dimensional people who simply want to hear every day the same thing. Liberals bad, Republicans bad, they're good. I don't understand anymore how they can't invest themselves in some other thinking. But I personally will go where I have to go in order to survive mentally. My brain dies if I have to go down that road every day of doing the same thing. So I hope that you appreciate where I'm going with the stories of Save the Whales and today's story about sexual assault, because these are very important topics as we go forward in our lives. And I thank you so much for calling the program. It is now. What time is it? My God, time has flown. Hour 3, 46 minutes after the hour? Wow, back in a minute.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com. All right, let's go political for a few seconds away from the other topic. Now, many of you know that I supported Trump longer than anyone else in the media on a more regular basis, and I still do support him for the reasons I mentioned. However, that doesn't mean I'm going to sit here like a dummy over every one of his appointments. For example, how many years have we criticized the Council on Foreign Relations on this show and every conservative radio show in America? 20 years? We know what the CFR is, right? Donald Trump is considering Richard Haass from CFR as number 2 at the State Department. It just came out. He heads the Council on Foreign Relations, which is a far-left world government body, and now he's going to be in the State Department. He's been president of the CFR since 2002. Haass visited the tower last Friday, and in May, Trump praised Haass on a television show. Trump said, "I respect Richard Haass, who's on your show a lot, and I like him a lot. I have a few people that I really like and respect." Haass and Trump also met privately in 2015 to discuss global issues. I've spent an hour with him there. He said, "I've seen him a few times on and off at the golf courses. Should I sit here and say nothing about it? Would you be happier with me? Would you then say, what am I, a Judas for pointing out that there's something wrong with this picture? I would be a Judas to my audience not to point this out. Do you understand that or not?" I guess you don't understand. Many of you are the true believers now. The Bush bots are back. The Trump bots are now operational. You say one word about any appointment, even people that they hated yesterday, now all of a sudden you're not loyal. Okay, that's the story. Richard Haass now is going to be in the State Department as undersecretary of this, undersecretary of that. That means they're putting him in charge. And Tillerson will be running ExxonMobil probably from the State Department. And this guy will actually be running the State Department. So it's the same as Hillary Clinton, in other words, without a pantsuit. Trump considering Richard Haass as number 2 at State Department. How do you feel about that one? Does that work well for you? You know who he is. Don't make believe you never heard of him. For years, talk radio, some of the fodder on talk radio was CFR bad, New World Order, World Government, Council on Foreign Relations, far left, Dianne Feinstein, Barbara Boxer, CFR. What are they doing in this administration is the question. President of the Council on Foreign Relations since 2002. Former UN Ambassador John the Walrus Bolton is also reportedly being considered for the post. I got to say, I'll take Bolton over Haass, even though I'm not a fan of Bolton, but I take him over Haass. How is this possible? Haass has worked in both Bush administrations. He has also served as Director of Policy Planning at the State Department. That would be for Hillary Clinton. And a Senior Director on the National Security Council. Great. So in other words, it's a revolving door now from the Obama-Hillary regime right into the Trump regime inside the workings of government. What about the swamp that was supposed to be drained? Haass is a swamp creature. Haass is one of the largest eels in the swamp. Why is he being put into this job? Say RNC. Trump has nothing to do with it. This is a war going on right now, a battle for the future of America. What we voted for is we're going to get 50, 40, 30%, and the same evildoers inside the Republican National Committee, as represented by Rinso Priebus, are putting back the same people that we just voted out. All the swamp creatures that we wanted voted out are being put back into the swamp by the RNC. Thank you for listening. Tomorrow is another day on the Savage Nation. I'm gonna live